Welcome to another InfluxDB and Grafana and a little bit of, more of Telegraf video. I'm really enjoying this whole InfluxDB stuff, learning new stuff, even though I find that it is extremely limited information that you can find on InfluxDB, especially when it comes to Influx 2.0. And I just find it strange after all, every sort of like influencer who is in Node-RED and home automation, they are just saying, InfluxDB and Grafana, and very little people seem to be talking about the details. So maybe I can do some, fill in some of these gaps. So I've been working with Influx and a little bit of Telegraf because I wanted to add a bit more information what you get in the standard delivery. And if you remember the previous video, I said that some of the graphs in this standard report are not working because some of the things, for example, these network details were not maintained in the standard configuration. So this is one of the things that I've done. So I can see some, network statistics. Honestly, not that I really care or not that I really look at this, but well, since it's in the standard delivery, I thought I just enable it and we can have some, nice graphs with, fancy colors. The other thing which I actually wanted is this top section here. So a couple of temperature information that I was quite interested in whenever I was running my Raspberry Pi, especially because it was a Pi 3, which didn't have a fan on it. So I just wanted to make sure it doesn't overheat. Again, a disclaimer, I'm running my setup on a PC, which has, as you can see, it has a couple of different temperatures. So I have a CPU temperature, which is actually a few different cores as well. And I also have some ACPI temperature and IC temperature. And I also have temperature from the SSD, which is installed on this small computer. So if you're running Raspberry Pi, I'm guessing you would probably have a single CPU temperature, but okay, that's also something. And the other thing I wanted to see is, especially when it comes to InfluxDB, is how much memory it takes for all this database to store. So I wanted to add something which can also monitor disk space, or not the disk space, but a space of a specific folder. So I haven't did that as well. So I think I'm going to talk about these changes in this video and how I did them. And if I go back to my document that I started creating last time, if you remember there, I've created a separate document on InfluxDB Grafana. Maybe I should add Telegraf as well. So we have gone through the initial setup and how you configure. And now I added up, setting up the connection between Grafana and InfluxDB 2.0 or 2.x. And now I added this additional system monitoring section. Obviously, this video is the one that I'm just recording, so that will get replaced. So first of all, we have to install a couple of additional packages. And two packages to start with is the LM sensors and the HTTP temp. So the LM sensor is going to monitor, temperature sensors that are built into the machine, and the HDD temp is temperature of the hard disk. So you can install it just by issuing this single command, which is going to install both of them. And by the way, the whole thing is explained in this article, so if you want to dive into the details. And once you have it installed, you can just type sensors, and it's going to give you all the sensors that are in your computer and the system is able to read. So as you can see, there is I think that's the Skylake, that's my CPU. So there is a CPU temperature, and I also have a ACPI temperature. I'm not really sure what this is, and also I'm not really sure what the ISO temperature is. And actually there is also some critical and high temperatures reported by this. Sorry about the small camera, it looks like it's not playing balls, so I readjusted the picture. So you should run this sensor as well to see what is supplied by your device. Not that you can do too much about it, but whatever you see this in here, that's going to go into InfluxDB. And by the way, if you want to use this in Node-RED, I noticed that you can do sensors and -J, and that's going to, sensors -J, and that's going to give you the information back in JSON format. So that would be ideal if you want to use it in Node-RED, because you can just put it in the exec, and the first output is going to give you this, and you can just easily process the information without, you know, trying to understand or trying to parse this text data. So this is a nice output. And the other one is the HDD temp, and you can test like this. So I have, I mean, for this you need a sudo, and I have one device, the SD card is /dev/SDA, and as you can see, it's yeah, Samsung SSD, and it's 34 degrees at the moment. And in order to run the HDD temp, you know, normally when you do sudo, well, based on the setup that I explained in the first setup video, when you do sudo, you would need to enter a username and a password, and that means that if you want to run it from Node-RED, from the exec, even if you pass the sudo, it won't run, because, well, there is no way for the Node-RED to enter the password. So if you go back to the, or if you issue this sudo vsudo command, then in the beginning we have changed it, or we added this line, which is your user ID and this command, and if you change this to no pass and /user/sbin/hdd temp, you can configure that for this specific application. If you enter sudo, it just executes, it doesn't ask for your password again. So that's, I did it in case you need, if you want to use it from Node-RED. And I also have the directory usage monitoring, and for that I followed an article that you can read here. Actually, this was a question in Stack Overflow, and out of the answers I used answer 11 and 9. So these two. So here the 11, it mentions, or it describes how you can monitor using the du command in Linux. So you just create a small bash script, and then you can add it to the Telegram JSON. But you have to do some additional stuff as well. So add access to the Telegraf user so you can read the influx folder, and also you have to access, add this command to your cron tab. So whenever influx creates a new file, that file would receive the permission as well. Otherwise, it's going to be invisible for the the DU to actually find it. And I've described that as well here. So how you can create the bash script. What's the bash script? Because in here in comment 9, there is also an example how you create a bash script if you want to monitor multiple directories. And that's what I monitor. So that's what I documented here, because I want to monitor probably 3 or 4 directories. You also have to give execution right to the bash script, and yeah, and that's the cron tab that I just mentioned before. So I documented everything here. And with this, we are already done. I mean, we're done installing all the additional software. So now what we need to do is to actually set up the Telegraf configuration. So it also uses these. And I have added all these sections at the end of the document. There is a lot of template in the document, so you really have to scroll down at the end to find, but you can add it on the top as well. So the first one is the LM sensors, and that's the section that you need to add. The only thing I really changed, I mean, as you can see, this all these pieces are commented out. So the only thing I added is interval 30 seconds. I mean, I don't need temperatures every 10 seconds, which is the default setting for Telegraf. So I just modified this to 30 seconds. And the next one is you add the HDD temp. I also specified it to 30 seconds. You don't even have to mention which drive you want to monitor. It's just going to monitor anything that has a temperature sensor. So that's nice. And then finally the disk usage, for which you have to enter this input, and it's an exec type input. So again, it runs a shell command, and then it processes the output, pretty much how we also use the exec command in Node-RED. So you issue this /etc telegraph script disk usage.sh, and in the parameters you just list the folders that you want to monitor. And I set it to 10 minutes because that basically just goes through each of your folders and then reads all the files and the file size and adds them up. So it definitely has a performance impact, which is also described here. So this is why I thought, it's not going to change that much. So 10 minutes is probably going to be more than enough. And in order to get the networks statistics, I added these two lines. So again, these are standard inputs. I haven't really configured anything on them. Probably the only thing I don't know, or I have reservations, how it works with the Wi-Fi. So my device only has an Ethernet, and without configuring anything, it is able to get the data from the Ethernet adapter. I'm assuming it's going to work the same for the Wi-Fi, but if not, then maybe you have to add some lines to this. So this is all you need to add to the Telegraf config. And after it, I've just restarted the computer so it reads the new Telegraf config. And it started monitoring, and we can actually look at how this all looks like. So if you go to export and you go to Telegraf, and I think previously, well, definitely we are seeing new measurements. The first is the DU measurement, and so you can see that it has the same kind of tag. So it has a host tag, and then it has a path tag, and you can see the three different folders that I've configured. And if I select all of them, and then if I submit, maybe I pick a bigger range. Oh, I only started collecting this for a couple of days now, so there is not an awful lot of change here. And one folder is under 1 gig, and I think one folder is under 1 megabyte, and the other one is 1.4 gig. So it obviously gets skewed in the results. But if we just look at the Grafana, the InfluxDB, okay, so there is a jump from, I don't know what it was, 16K to almost a megabyte at the moment. So that's how it looks like. And obviously you can do the monitoring and everything from here. And if you move on, you also have the HDD temp. And here you again have a host. Instead of a path, you have a device. And I only have one, so I don't really have anything else. Maybe if you have multiple hard drives and an SSD, then you have a couple of different options here. But if I do just temperature, then you can see the temperature details for this SSD. It was shooting up to 41 degrees, I'm not sure why. But anyway, so it works, it collects the data, and you can see it in Telegraf, or, well, at the moment, InfluxDB. And if I show you that was disk usage. No, so that was HDD. No, sorry, that was disk usage and HDD temp. And the third one which got added is the sensors. And here, let me just close these. So it's the feature. So you can see, oh, it's not really not a feature. There is another one, which. Not this one. I hate it that I don't see the bottom of the screen. Maybe if I go full screen. Okay. No, it's not the host. It's not the feature. It's the chip. Yeah. So these are the three chips that measure temperature. So for example, if I want the process or temperature, then I can just use this. And yeah, it looks pretty much the same as the SSD temperature. So this is the processor temperature, and you can get the other temperatures as well. So that's the extra information that you get once you install these components and add them to the telegraf.config. And of course now you have the net and the net start as well. And there is a whole load of stuff here. Oh, you can see the interfaces. So this is my Ethernet interface. So if you are using Wi-Fi, you probably have a different interface, for example, the Wi-Fi, and you can see all these different fields like, data received. It collects a lot of information. And there is probably even more stuff in netstat. Yeah, and that's about the the TCP traffic. Okay, it doesn't have an interface, it just has the host and these fields. Yeah, so you get some data. Okay, let me get out of here, because what I wanted to show you is the Telegraf. I mean, most probably, just like me, you would want to add this to the Telegraf config. So in the previous video, I told you how you can create the connection between Grafana and InfluxDB, and how you can install this dashboard. So this is a community dashboard that I added, and that it comes with all the gadgets up until basically from this quick queue downwards. And in the previous video, none of these net stuff worked because I lacked the configuration in the file, but now it is working. So I started adding all these temperature values here, and I'm just going to show you how I configured one. So for this gadget, I select the data from the sensors measurement, and I filter on the chip tag. For the processor, it's the Skylake, and then I use the input temp input field, and I use the max because I wanted to see the max. But you can also use, for example, mean, and that's going to show you the mean temperature for that particular interval, for example, for the last hour. So here I just hard-coded the max value of 100, but you can look up if you go back to sensors, you can look up what is the high and the critical value, and maybe you can also even add, one more color here. You can add thresholds here, so that you can configure which part of the graphicon is red, and maybe you can add another color as well. But yeah, you can play around with it, and pretty much configuring all the other options are exactly the same. I just picked a different chip, but the rest of it is the same. So you create once, and then when you create one, you can just come here and say more and duplicate, and then change the chip type. And the same for the ACPI temperature, and the HDD temperature is a slightly bit different, because then now we are selecting from the HDD temp measurement. We use the tag, the device tag to filter on SDA. And well, for example, here I use the mean, so that will give me the average temperature for the whatever window that is selected at the moment. And I also added a chart, because I thought that's going to be quite interesting to have these charts, but the temperature stays pretty much the same, so it is not that interesting to look at. Maybe what you can do is you can leave the maximum value on auto. So I think I fixed it to 100. So obviously these changes get scaled down. This is why it is not so visible. But maybe you leave it auto, then you see more wiggly lines on this on the chart. And as you can see, I'm still using sensors. I just haven't specified haven't filtered on the tag. So this is why it shows me all the different temperatures, as you can see here. And maybe I can add a legend on the side as well, so you can see the different colors. But yeah, I mean, if I do this auto, yeah, okay, there is not an awful lot of change even if I leave it to auto. But if I do auto and auto, okay, it gets a little bit better. But as you can see, there is not a whole lot of change. I mean, my server is not doing much at the moment anyway, so there is not an awful lot of load which would raise the temperature even for a shorter period of time. So that's all about the temperature. And the next one is the folder size. So here, obviously I am filtering on, or I'm selecting from measurement DU, and then I use the path tag to filter on, whatever path that I want to show here. And the value that I'm displaying is the directory size kilobyte. And I'm also using mean here. So, but maybe I could use the last as well. And the only additional thing I've done is here, where is it? Yeah, so here I've changed the unit to kilobytes. And that's actually quite nice, because the raw value here is, no, it's 824. But then if I go over to my home folder, which has all the installed program and everything, so that's obviously 1.47 gigabytes. And since I've also specified the unit to kilobytes, it automatically reformats it and divides it by 1000 and says gigabyte now. So it is really smart in terms of doing the conversion between the different units. But as you can see, it's the same stuff, so it's just a different path. And I thought maybe I'm just going to create a history as well, but again, it's not really interesting. So I put a history on the InfluxDB data, but I mean, anyway, the filter is for 1 hour, but even if I go for the 24 hours, it doesn't really change. So yeah, I mean, if I would use this a lot more, then probably it would make sense to have this chart. And I almost forgot about these data fields, because the other thing I was really interested in is how much these folders change, or by how many kilobytes or megabytes, if I start, especially if I start adding more data to InfluxDB. So I created this panel, and for that I used I written this the statement myself, mostly because this difference, I think it's not supported, or I had no idea how to get this difference from the query editor, but it is doing pretty much the same as the other graph, so, or the other panel. So it is selecting from the measurement DU, where the path is whatever the path is, and here normally you have a parameter here which says $time value or something different. So here I basically defaulted that I want to select from this DU data from the last 2 days. So starts now minus 2 days up until now, and I want to group it by 1 day. So it selects a 2-day window, and it will group it by for every day, and then the difference is going to calculate the difference between the records. So this is why it is giving me 3.3 kilobytes. So that's the extra thing that I have added to the Node-RED folder. So maybe I just made a small change to a flow, and then my flow value has increased by 3.3 kilobytes. I'm not really sure what I have done, but I made some changes to Node-RED recently. So that's how it works. So again, you can just copy and paste this and just easily change the path to something else. Or if you want, let's say a weekly change, then you can select like 2 weeks here, or maybe 14 days, and then you can group by week. So 1W, 1 week, and that's going to give you the change for a week. And for the InfluxDB, I did the same. The only difference is that the path is different, but the rest of the query is the same. So this is all that I've added to the query at the moment, and probably I can tweak it a little bit in the future. I can add more panels, especially if I start using the system in a slightly different way. So I want to focus on the performance of specific components or folders that I can play around with this, and also I want to experiment with the alerts in InfluxDB, so maybe I can also use the CPU temperature or the folder size to use it as an alert. So I don't know if for some reason the InfluxDB folder size increases by a certain amount per day, then it can send me an alert to just notify me that an unusually high amount of data is being entered to the system or to InfluxDB without my knowledge. But I think that will be all for today. As usual, you will find the link to this wiki page on GitHub, which shows you all the code, so you don't have to, you can just copy and paste it, but you can just watch my video on each of the steps and what I have done. And obviously in the document I haven't gone into the details of the changes, because that's easier to show on the video than copy and paste all the code into a web page. So I think that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.